Well, shalom and welcome everyone to Torah with your host Rabbi Anibal. As you can see right there, I can put my name now. It's so fancy, and yeah, sorry it took me a couple of seconds to get off the video to go here. I was just brewing coffee. Do you say brewing coffee when it's espresso? I don't think so. This is a nice espresso, a double, for those of you who know about your coffee. And yeah, so welcome Priscilla, welcome David and Brenda. Who else is there? You're there, please say hi. I want to know who is on the other side of the screen. And it's always great to know about everybody there. We're going to study this morning about this afternoon actually about this week's Torah portion. And hopefully we are going to keep understanding more about the personality of Abraham and his contributions to the Jewish world and to the world in general, I will say, because this week's parsha is talking about his morals, his ethics, his priorities. Let's put it that way. I like that, the priorities. Yeah. Welcome, Leah Ehrenberg. Welcome to the class. I hope you will enjoy it. And yeah, good jolt. Is it? I I hope so. I hope so. It's one of my daily treats. I don't know if you can see it. Where will it be? Right there, in the corner. You can see the coffee machine that I have. So once a day, I like to have a nice coffee. And Brenda, keep promoting this wonderful class. Thank you so much. Brenda Grossman is our new ambassador of Torah L'Chaim. We should make T-shirts or offer merch. That's how my son call it, merch. He likes merch. Everything is about merch, right? Anyway, so we are about to start studying this week's parsha, and as I say, today we are going to learn about Abraham's priorities. I want to put it that way. And it's going to make us, hopefully, it's going to make us reflect on our own priorities. Because we are finite individuals, we have finite resources, our time is finite. So we have to learn, the sooner we learn this, the better, that you can't just say yes to everything. Because if you start saying yes to everything, you're going to start saying no to things that maybe they are important to you. So we have to learn sometimes how to say no to certain things that we want to say no to those things. So we can say yes to the things that we really want to say yes. Many things has been written about this. I think there are even books about this of not saying yes when you want to say no. I think that's the title. I never read it. But I studied the concept. Sometimes you have to prioritize what you are going to do in a day or in your life. So, without further delay, let's go to our first text that I want to share with you. We are going to go from there. This is from this week's parsha, right at the beginning of the parsha, when it says, Vayera elav Adonai. Okay, so we have to understand what's going on here. Abraham was just circumcised. We read that at the end of the last week's parsha. He was an old man. Circumcision was part of the covenant, right? It was a requirement for covenant. I guess it will be easier from now on because after that generation that they have to circumcise at whatever age they were when Abraham made this covenant with God. From the future generations, it's going to be as babies, all the males at 8 days. And that's the way we still do it in this day within Judaism, right? So Abraham was an old man. He had to circumcise himself, and now he was recovering from his circumcision. So when we read here, what is it? The oaks of Mamre. It's not clear what it is. It may have it may have been something like I know it's different time, different age, but in modern age we'll call it a spa or something like that, or a place maybe. I don't know. I don't know what was special about it, but he went there, and in those days, I guess it was kind of easier than in this day to move from one place to another. Population wasn't as huge as it is today, and people didn't really have houses. Abraham has tents. So I guess if you want to go someplace to recover, it's a nicer place. You take a tent, you go there, you take a few animals, you take your family, and you relocate, and then you come back to wherever you want to be. So this is what happened here. Oh, David Grossman said Abraham was a mohel. But this is the thing. Did he do it himself? Or maybe he went there because people there in Mamre, they knew how to do it. We don't know. We don't know how it happened. Okay. I don't know if it's possible for somebody to do it on himself, because you know what happened. Because pain can paralyze you, or it's very difficult. You won't be able to do it. So maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to guess because I don't have the information. So what happened is, let's recap. Abraham was recovering from the circumcision. What happened when you know of someone who is having some health issues? You visit them, right? Well, in fact, we learned that from this week's Parsha, the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim, visiting the sick. How do we know that? Because Abraham was recovering. So it says, Adonai, which is one of the names of God, appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the entrance to the tent during the heat of the day. What a beautiful thing that God visited Abraham, because Abraham was kind of down because he was recovering from the circumcision. But here is what the rabbi said, and this is a beautiful midrash. He said, Abraham was, remember, recovering. I said, he sat at the entrance to the tent during the heat of the day. And that made him depressed. Why? Well, the Midrash says that Abraham was in pain, and what he was beyond the physical pain, he was in pain because he couldn't do what he loved to do, which was welcoming people into his tent. Okay? Sometimes travelers of other people, Abraham had great pleasure to offer hospitality to them. But now he was recovering, and he couldn't do it the same way. He couldn't run after people and say, hey, how you doing? Come here. He couldn't. So God noticed that Abraham was in double pain. He was in pain because of the circumcision, and in emotional pain because he couldn't fulfill in these days a mitzvah. Back in the day, it said Abraham couldn't fulfill his need to offer hospitality to others. So the rabbi said that part of God's visit was to create or to send people to walk by so Abraham could offer them hospitality. But listen to the way it happens. Adonai appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the entrance to the tent during the heat of the day. So heat of the day, it was very hot. He didn't care. He was outside. He wanted to see if somebody was walking by. Abraham raised his eyes and saw, and there in front of him stood 3 men. Okay? Now, I want to ask you to think for a second, what would you do if you have at the same time 2 visits? Okay, 2 visits. You receive the visit of God, and you receive the visit of three men at the same time, which one will you serve first? Will you talk to God and say to the three men, hold on a minute, I'm having a conversation with God here, okay? Wait your turn. Or you will say to God, okay, God, please hold on a minute, I'm going to go to take care of these three men. Priorities, remember? What was more important to Abraham? Here's the answer. You don't have to think about it. That answer is right here. He saw them, the men. That's why he said them, the men, because he could say he saw him. He saw him, and then it will imply that now Abraham is running after God. But no, he saw them and ran from the tent door to meet them, prostrated himself on the ground, and said, my Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, please don't leave your servant. What do we learn there? That Abraham put God on hold to attend these three men. And here we have a very interesting philosophy, if you say, a very interesting principle that maybe we can apply to our lives, because it's talking about the balance between spiritual life and down to earth life. Because we know that there are certain things that we have to do in this world, but we also want to satisfy our emotional and spiritual needs. We need that connection with God. But then basically, if what this text, at least to me, what this text is telling me is if I have to choose at a specific time in between talking to God or helping somebody, the Jewish answer is always you help somebody first. God will wait for you. Okay? So Abraham is teaching us this. Abraham was a very interesting character, because I don't know if you remember that Noah, God also came to visit Noah. But Noah's description is Noah walked with God. And you need to use your imagination here. Walking with, right? It's almost like God had to hold Noah's hand to go through life. And we know many people like that they cannot make any decision by themselves. They always have to, so to speak, check the manual first, and then they will know what to do. And Abraham, from the beginning, he was a pioneer. He was a person who wasn't afraid to take all these kind of bold decisions, right, when he left his place and everything. But then there is the risk, and I guess for what happened, I will tell you in a minute, for what happened, Abraham was at risk to fall into the same category of Noah, which I believe is a good entry level, but it was expected more from Abraham when he became more and more attached to God, that God said to Abraham, Teilech lefanav, I believe it's in Hebrew, walk ahead of me, which in the context, it doesn't mean anything. Walk ahead of me. But I believe that with what God is telling Abraham was walk ahead of me, is don't be like Noah, right? You're already there. Now it's time for you to take the initiative on things. Trust your instinct. Abraham, you're a good person. You don't need me to tell you every single thing, how to do it, when to do it. Trust your guts and follow it. So walk ahead of me. And I will be there watching your back, right? I won't let you fall, but I want you to try. Be yourself, trust your instincts, and walk in front of me. So I believe this is one of the things that Abraham did following that principle. Abraham took the initiative. He had God on one side, three men on the other side. What do? Do you think God told Abraham what to do? Probably not. And Abraham knew that the right thing to do is to first you feed or you give water to a person who, if you don't give a person water, the person will die, right? So first you do that, and then you talk to God. God will still be there. God's been there from the beginning of time. God will be there at the end of time. So God can wait. So that's the thing. Any comments? I would like to hear from you, and that will also give me a chance to have some coffee. So I want to know what you think about this. Okay, in what I will go to the next text. Now, the thing here is, how do we know that with Abraham did was correct? Okay, for us to think about it. Now, the rabbis teach something very interesting, and we learn this from the book of Deuteronomy. Now, this is Moses teaching a whole new generation, people who never experienced Egypt. Many of them never didn't experience the revelation on Sinai. He's trying to teach them a general rule on how to live our lives. Okay? A general principle. Of course, it's always good to be scholars and to know every single detail. And it's good. And in this day and age, it's very easy to do that. All you have to do, look behind me. My library here, my bookshelves are full of books and telling people what to do, right? But Moses said something very interesting. Listen to this. He said, "It is your God alone whom you should follow, whom you should revere, whose commandments you should observe, whose orders you should heed, whom you should worship, and to whom you should hold fast." So in other words, here Moses is telling us that it is very important for us to learn what to do, okay, or what is God's will, but it's also important from this to get to know God, to get to know God's essence. And that is a beautiful thing, to get to know God's essence, because the more you know God, the more you have an example or a role model, if you want, that it will help you to make decisions as well. So in this case, we can how did Abraham know about taking care of people before taking care of God? Even if God didn't tell him explicitly what to do, because Abraham dedicated his life to try to understand God. And that if Abraham knew that all this kindness that God shared, or God shared with Abraham, or how do you say about kindness? Did all the kindness that God did to Abraham, right? Now it's time for Abraham to repay that kindness and to be kind to other people. And you could say that even that Abraham learned it from God. But the chat is very quiet. I want to know what you think about this. We'll go to the next one. Now, I'll bring the Talmud, okay, to share the Talmudic wisdom about this concept. Listen to this. Rabbi Hama Bar Hanina said, what is the meaning of the verse, "It is your God alone whom you should follow"? Remember the verse that I just read for you. Is it possible for a person to walk and follow the Shekhinah, the divine presence? Okay, so what does it mean to follow God? Can you actually follow God? God doesn't, it has no body. It's infinite. So how can you follow God? This is an interesting question, How do you follow something that you cannot really follow in human terms? You can follow a person, right? You can physically follow a group, but you cannot physically follow God. So, how do you do that? Listen to this. Rather, this teaches us to emulate God's attributes, just as God clothes the naked, as it is written, and God made for Adam and his wife garments of skin, and God clothed them, right? So must you clothe the naked. God visits the sick, as it is written, God appeared to him, Abraham, who was recovering from his circumcision in the plains or on the oaks of Mamre, is this week's Parsha. Here you have it. God comforts the mourners, as it is said, it is written, and it was after the death of Abraham that God blessed Isaac, his son, in a way of comforting him for the loss of his father. So you must comfort the mourners. And God buries the dead, as it is written, God buried Moses in the valley. So shall you bury the dead. This is not a minor thing because there are lots of halachic implications of this story that we just read. And so the Talmud is counting from the thing, is one of the commandments that we have, that is to visit the sick. And which is interesting, that even though God was visiting the sick, God was visiting Abraham. Abraham never stopped at the same time to show kindness to others. I think it's a beautiful thing, and how can I say this? An incredible thing what Abraham did, being in pain, and the way to lessen his pain was to do kindness for others. And I don't know how you deal with your own emotional pain. And that's something I'm very curious. If any of you have a favorite way to deal with emotional pain, right? But again, there are lots of things that they've been written about this, and it's fascinating that one of the most effective ways to deal with emotional pain is to do something good for others. I know it's counterintuitive because I said, hey, I'm the one who's having a problem. How can you expect me to do something for somebody else? I want somebody else to do something for me. I'm not doing well. But in this case, it's the opposite. He said, part of the healing, it is not to be self-centered, but to do something for somebody else. And this is a principle that we learn from Abraham. So, Brenda, you said go to the gym or go shopping. I better go to the gym then. Way cheaper than going shopping, I'd expect. But yeah, you see, but Brenda, you see, Brenda, this is what I mean. When you have some emotional pain, you go to the gym or go shopping. That's what most people will do, and it's something you do for yourself. Well, at least I'm going to the gym and I'm going to exercise to do something for my body, and I go buy something new for me, so I'm gonna feel better. But what the Torah is teaching us is an alternative model, which is when you feel bad about yourself, try doing something for somebody else. And that is a very, as I said before, something that sounds like counterintuitive way of going around, right? I don't know. I think it's a fascinating thing and worth to try that way. That way. It's that to do something for somebody else. And Abraham did a lot of that. Any other comments? Oh, my wife is here. Ashira Myers. Hi, Eddie. So maybe there is a balance, so we don't lose ourselves either in the process. It's a beautiful approach slash model. Oh, thank you. David, you said Brenda likes to feed people when they are sad or feeling bad. Okay. Well, that's pretty much what Abraham did. He went and feed these people. I was a hi, Rabbi. Hi, doctor. Great that you're joining the class. And by the way, before I forget, unfortunately, we are not going to have a class next week. I have I have an event that I was invited. It's in a charity, something very important that I will be part of that. So unfortunately, next week we are not going to have a class. So hopefully, I will see you all the week after. Okay, just wanted to be sure about that. Wanted to be sure about that. Okay, so let's continue. Now, I presented to you a text from the Torah, then I presented an opinion from the Talmud. Now I want to present an opinion from later rabbis. Now, this rabbi that I'm going to present to you is a rabbi that is very close to me because a direct descendant to this rabbi, from this rabbi, is married to my daughter. Believe it or not, his name is exactly like that, Isaiah Horowitz, and it's very interesting because back in those days, these rabbinic dynasties they keep perfect. They keep track of everybody born and what they're doing and everything. So this guy can trace all the way back to this Rabbi Isaiah Horowitz that was also called the Shela Hakadosh. He was a miracle worker and a great scholar. Okay. Yeah. Brenda, you said, okay, so now you're encouraging me to continue to encourage others to come and learn from you to help others. Okay, but you can still go to the gym or go shopping. Don't be that's also good. That's also good. When you go to the gym, you're helping yourself. And Maimonides was saying that it's very important to keep good health even through exercising, and going shopping helps the economy. So it's all good. So you're always helping somebody else, no matter what you do. Okay, let's read about what Isaiah Horowitz has to say. He said, "It's clear to me that besides for its status of a lofty moral attributes, the mitzvah of hospitality constitutes fulfillment of the mitzvah to walk in God's ways." So when the Talmud is talking about walking in God's ways and how you understand that, Rabbi Horowitz would say hospitality is the way is the way to fulfill the mitzvah, walk in His ways, by emulating God, as in Deuteronomy 13:5 above, and as listed by the Rambam in the Sefer HaMitzvot, mitzvah number 8. Okay? For the Holy One, blessed be He, extends hospitality to all of His creatures who are guests in every period and age, at every second and every moment of every day. It's a beautiful concept because sometimes we don't think ourselves of guests in the world. Because at the end of the day, the world is God's world. And we are guests here. We don't own the world. But that may be for another class. Okay? So, if not for God's hospitality at every moment, then all of existence will cease to exist. This means that all the inhabitants of the world are like guests of God. A person is like one who has come to lodge in this world for a time. We are visitors here, and God hosts us. Therefore, by acting as a host to others, one is directly emulating God as walking in God's way. And this is something that is really rooted in Jewish culture and in Jewish law as well. So let me give you an example how this concept of hospitality became pretty much the first mitzvah that it was given to the Jewish people before the exodus from Egypt. And you will think, really? What are you talking about? Listen to this. When God said to the people of Israel, get ready because, Exodus is coming, right? And that will be the prelude to that will be the 10th plague, the death of the firstborn. God said to the Jewish people, what you have to do in preparation for that night is get a lamb, okay? And you have to slaughter it, and you have to eat it that night. And then it says right away, if the lamb is too big for you, what you have to do is invite your next door neighbor to join you so you can eat it together. So there is no waste. So if there is too much, you will join forces with somebody who is maybe live alone with another person and they don't have a lamb, so you eat it together. So the concept of hospitality was there even before the Exodus. And I will say that there is not a coincidence because of this sharing the lamb for the Passover, basically. That was the first Pesach. Sharing lamb for Pesach actually established this well-known tradition to inviting people over for the Seder, which is perhaps the most visible time in Judaism when you can see this commandment of hospitality. I would say the most visible part is the Seder, when people go crazy trying to invite people over, or you will probably know, or maybe you're one of those people who don't have a way or a place to celebrate the Seder, and you will find a way to get invited to somebody else. So this concept of hospitality is very well rooted in Judaism from the very beginning. Starting with Abraham, continue with the people with the Exodus and so forth. Okay. Now, let's continue. Let's go to Pirkei Avot now. This is now the Mishnah. Pirkei Avot is the Mishnah. It came a little bit before the Talmud itself. So it goes like this: whoever possesses the three things, he or she is of the disciples of Abraham, our father. And whoever possesses these three other things, he is of the disciples of Balaam, the wicked. Remember Balaam, he tried to curse the Jewish people. So Abraham was a source of blessing. Remember, God said this to Abraham, you will be a blessing, and you will be a blessing. There is even a song, remember, from Debbie Friedman, and you shall be a blessing. Because Abraham represents blessing, and Balaam, even though he ended up saying a blessing, but that was God forcing him to do it. If you will leave Balaam just by himself, he will curse the Jewish people. So you have these two models: Abraham the blessing, Balaam the curse. Okay, so three things will get you closer to the blessing. These other three things will get you close to the curse. So what is a blessing? Number one, a good eye. Number two, a humble spirit. Number three, a moderate appetite. You have these three things, you are like a student of Abraham, our father. Now, if you have an evil eye, a haughty spirit, and a limitless appetite, you are one of the students, the disciples of Balaam, the wicked. So, the Mishnah continues. What is the difference between the disciples of Abraham, our father, and the disciples of Balaam, the wicked? Right? So, because so far up to this point, the Mishnah is philosophical. But now I said, tell me in plain English, even though back then was probably plain Aramaic, what does it mean? So it says, what are the differences? The disciples of Abraham, our father, enjoyed this world and inherit the world to come. As it is said, I will endow those who love me with substance I will fill their treasuries. But the disciples of Balaam the wicked inherit Gehenna and descend into the uh, nethermost pit. As it says, for you, O God, will bring them down to the nethermost pit, those murderers and treacherous men. They shall not live out half of the day, but I trust in you. So in other words, what it's saying is, if you go through life with a good eye, what is a good eye? You're a person who doesn't envy, right? And you are humble. And in this case, let me tell you quickly how Abraham's was a humble person. When Abraham has in front of him God in one side and three hungry and thirsty travelers in the other side, only a humble person will choose to help three thirsty travelers. Because if you are not a humble person, if you're arrogant, say, hey, you three shepherds, wait there. Hey, God came to visit me. Why? Because I deserve it. I'm the greatest man alive. Right? And now that I think about it, I'm the greatest man alive. Why would I take care of you that you are the lowest members of society? You don't even have water or food. Right? Abraham was all the opposite. He didn't care that these three people were travelers, or he didn't care. Think about it. They weren't even sharing his own beliefs. How do we know that? Because we know that the only people in those days understanding and worshiping and following the one God were probably Abraham and his group. We believe that Abraham taught everything to his people, but these three strangers, they were pagans. And we know the Torah says all the time, then all the things that we should not do for pagans and blah blah. But Abraham didn't care. And in fact, we go even further. When these three men, by the way, they ended up being angels, but nobody knew this at this point. When these three men said to Abraham and to Sarah, "You're going to have a baby," Sarah laughed. And God didn't like that a bit. And God said, hey, whoa, why is she laughing? Why? And then you may think, well, what's wrong about her laughing? If you are an old person and you have three strangers, right? Three strangers, they come by your tent and said, hey, in a year, you're going to have a baby. Wouldn't you laugh? What do you know? We've been trying to have a baby for the last, 80 years and we couldn't. Right? What do you know about my situation? Well, what Abraham is teaching us here is it's not up to us to judge that. That's why he says here, a good eye. Don't judge. Don't judge. Always positive when you look at others. Don't judge. So if somebody, doesn't matter who it is, it's a pagan, it's a Jew, it's a Muslim, it's a Christian, doesn't matter. Somebody comes to you with a blessing. Don't laugh. Your obligation is say amen. Amen to that. Because the person means well. They're truly trying to share a blessing with you. So it doesn't matter what it comes. If it's a blessing, something nice, your obligation is to say amen. Sarah unfortunately didn't understand that. She laughed and God didn't like it. He said, Sarah, you should know better. You should know better. So, especially because you never know. These three men ended up being angels. Right? So we don't laugh. We say amen. Because you never know who God will use to bless you. You never know. So let's continue with this. Oh, before that, Brenda, you said, my mother had a beautiful saying, we can add more water to the soup There was always plenty for visitors. This is a practice I continue to live by. Beautiful, beautiful. Yep. Uh, yeah. So it was good eye, humble spirit, moderate appetite, and this is important because basically, if you never have enough, you will never have time for other people. Because if you ever have any kind of time, you will say, well, instead of helping others, I should be using this time to get more for myself. And it's true. You will see many people, I don't want to give names of things, but famous people that all they do is work. And if by any chance they have more time, more time to make money now. So that's why Abraham said, Abraham did well in life. He was, I would say, by the standards of the time, a rich man. Maybe he wasn't a billionaire because he had a moderate appetite. Sometimes you need to know, I'm doing great. I can feed my family. I can travel. I can save a little bit. So I don't have to kill myself doing that. I can dedicate part of my time, part of my money to help others. And we learned that from Abraham. Now we said Bilam was all the opposite. He wanted more all the time. He wanted more and more honor over him all the time. And what it says, the Talmud, is if you live like Abraham, your actions will live after you. It's typical. You help others. That stays even after you're gone. So that's the thing. So, yeah. Let's continue. Now, in Deuteronomy 6:16, what you do, what we read is something very interesting. Because to me it doesn't really make sense until you understand the depth of this. Listen to this. It says, do what is right and good in the sight of God, that it may go well with you, and that you may be able to possess the good land that your God promised on oath to your fathers. Why I say that it doesn't make any sense? Because technically this verse is not necessary. It's unnecessary. Why is that? Because God already gave us the Torah with all the instructions, so we will know what is right and good in the sight of God. So basically, in other words, you fulfill the Torah, you're doing everything that is good for God because that's what God wants from us. So what does it mean, do what is right and good in the sight of God? Why doesn't Moses says, fulfill every law in the Torah that it may go well with you and blah, blah, blah? He said, no, do what is right and good in the sight of God. Well, and this is fascinating. And it's something that, unfortunately, we know it well within Judaism, and it's happening in every religion, that you can be a religious person and a terrible human being. Am I right? Let me say it again. You can be a religious person fulfilling every mitzvah to the letter of the law and still being a jerk. How is that possible? Because every law will have the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And it's important for us to understand both. So this is what this verse is saying us. You have to, of course, fulfill the Torah, every law of the Torah if you can, but at the same time, do it in a way that is going to be something good out of that. So this is something that many people don't understand. Especially, I've noticed this on many people who embrace a more religious form of Judaism all of a sudden because they met a powerful rabbi or they went to seminary and they were transformed and they want to change their lives and fulfill all the commandments, and all of a sudden you realize that there's something wrong. It's nothing wrong about the fact that they are fulfilling all the mitzvot, but the way this, the way they are not paying attention on the harm that they may be afflicting other peoples around them, right? Or it's not uncommon to see people that technically they may be religious, that they come to synagogue every day, they put tefillin, they eat kosher, they give tzedakah and everything, but then all of a sudden, you read the newspaper, they were engaged in, in bad things. How is that possible? Well, sometimes you can fulfill all the commandments and still be a bad person. Unfortunately, there is a way for that. Some people are great to find loopholes within the law, for example, to justify their bad intentions. And that's why, let me tell you something that for me is fascinating, and we study this right after Pesach. Between Pesach and Shavuot, we have to count the Omer. We count every day for 50 days. And the rabbis say that during those 50 days, we have to study ethics. Why is that? Why do we need to study ethics? Well, they would say it's in preparation for the revelation of the Torah and Shavuot. And then you say, but it should be the other way around. First, you receive the Torah, and then you learn the ethics from the Torah. And they said, nope. Before you receive the Torah, you have to become a good person. Because as God said to Abraham, walk ahead of me. You pretty much, you can figure out what is good and bad. Trust your instincts. You know what is good or bad, right? But first, once you have a pure heart, then you're ready for revelation, not the other way around. Yeah. Leah, you said maybe they just want to be perceived by others as faithful. Yeah, it may be. I like that because it may be a component of newly religious people that they need to be recognized by others. And then many eventually they realize that, the only one that matters here is God. You don't have to impress anybody. And God already knows your heart, right? So that's why it is important not just to do what is right. What is right, it means yashar. Yashar means, straight, which is exactly what the law says. Ve'asita hayashar. You have to do it exactly as the law says. But also the good. Do it in a good and positive way. So becoming religious to impress others, probably not the best reason. Probably not the best reason. But again, it's a cycle, and eventually many people finally understand that it's more about something that is inside. You don't have to, it's not something to show off to others. Yeah. Now, listen to what the Rambam, the Maimonides, had to say about this. He said, the intention behind the mitzvah to do what is fair and good is the following. The previous verse states, you must keep his decrees and testimonies as he commanded you. Now, this verse is saying, even regarding matters in which I have not explicitly commanded you, make sure to do what is good and right in God's eyes, because God loves that which is good and right. Aha. You understand what Maimonides is going here? Because now he's taking that to a new level. He will say, well, the Torah cannot possibly regulate every single detail of everything in life. Life keeps evolving, and you will have new situations. So you need basically to learn the principles of the Torah so you can apply it to every area. Or otherwise, as I mentioned before, you can start creating a loophole. So say, hey, I can do this because the Torah doesn't really say anything about this, so I can do whatever I want. The Rambam said, no so fast. Why not so fast? He says, this is an important principle. It will be impossible for the Torah to specify the proper interpersonal conduct for every life situation regarding neighbors, friends, business, communities, and countries. The Torah does. However, specify the proper conduct for many situations, even if not for all situations. For example, you shall not be a gossip monger, and you shall not take revenge or bear a grudge, etc. Our verse now states a general principle to do what is good and right in all life situations. So basically what it says is at one point we have to be proficient enough in Torah that we can learn from precedents, right? If you really feel that you're not qualified to make an ethical decision, what you have to do is not to improvise, but read the Torah, read the rabbis, try to understand from them what God wants from you, and then you will have a guiding principles to make decisions in life. People sometimes misunderstand, and not every ethical decision is, well, should I disconnect this sick person from the machine, right? Is that kosher or not? Well, that's a major decision, but most of the times, the ethical decisions that we have to take every day are a smaller scale. And the more we know Torah, the more prepared we are going to be to make all those decisions, to try to do not only what is according to the law, but only what we believe, based on our understanding of Torah and God, what is good for God. And it's a very important thing to try to understand at the end of the day what is good for God and what is not good for God. Now, it's how treasured by God is the mitzvah of hospitality. The Torah devotes much attention and great detail to the episode of Abraham's hospitality. This is to serve for us as a reminder and inspiration to follow in his footsteps our entire lives. Indeed, immediately after recording this episode, the Torah goes on to praise Abraham specifically because he educated his children, including future generations, to follow in his ways of righteousness and hospitality. This refers to the verse, "For I have loved him because he commanded his children and his household after him that they keep the way of God." So what happened here, we have to quickly understand what Abraham did. Okay? Because what Abraham did was kind of fascinating. And let me see if I can, I want to be sure. Okay. So I will finish this text and then I will tell you what I'm talking about here, right? Let's continue. I said, this is part of the same comment by the Hafetz Chaim. He said, we see that the Torah devotes much space to depicting every detail of Abraham's hospitality. We are taught that Abraham Avinu kept all the laws of the Torah. Yet it is specifically with regarding to his fulfillment of the mitzvah of hospitality that the Torah goes into such minute detail, and it relates the other mitzvot that he kept in general terms only. So what I'm trying to say here is, when the three strangers came, okay, what Abraham said is, he said, "Hey, Sarah, please prepare the bread. Hey, Ishmael, go and prepare the animal." He involved his family into fulfilling the mitzvah of hospitality. So Abraham, I mean, he had physical limitations. He just had the circumcision, but he was said he involved other people also into helping the three strangers. So Sarah was preparing the bread, Ishmael was preparing the meat. Meanwhile, Abraham was making these three people feel at home and chatting with them. And the other thing, which is very interesting, and we also learned from that, and it became halacha, by the way, it says that Abraham promised a little and delivered a lot. Abraham promised the three strangers, "Come here, I will give you, a little bit of water, a little bit of bread." And at the end of the day, what he gave the three strangers was a feast with meat, with cakes and things. And that is the way also it said, you promise a little, you deliver a lot. Unfortunately, usually people is the opposite. They promise a lot and they deliver a little. So that's something that we also learn from Abraham. Well, and that's all the time we have for today. Whew, it went fast. So just again, quick reminder, next week we don't have a class. Unfortunately, I have to skip next week. We are going to see each other again in 2 weeks, okay? 2 weeks from now. And if you missed any part of this class, it's going to be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time. Okay, 8 p.m. Central Time. The whole recording of this class is going to be streamed again, just in case if you missed part of the class. If you want to watch it again, you will have the opportunity to do so. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. It's great to share this virtual classroom with all of you. And please have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe. Hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.